still can't stand the smell of fresh pine and cloves. It's funny how a single, devastating moment can chemically alter your sensory perception, turning the warmth of Christmas into a clinical, icy memory of utter betrayal. It was December 24th, 2024. The house, the one Sarah and I had spent 15 years turning into a premium-rate suburban fortress, was perfect. We're in the upper middle class bracket. I'm an architect. She's a marketing executive. We built this life meticulously. We were midway through dinner, surrounded by Sarah's side of the family. Her parents, her brother Mark, and his wife. Everyone laughed politely. Then came the Christmas crackers. I pulled one with Sarah. Snap. It was one of those cheap, brightly colored paper crowns and a terrible joke. Sarah, however, pulled out something else. A small, folded piece of thick, cream-colored paper. She smoothed it out on the table, her hand shaking so slightly I might have missed it if I wasn't watching her. She cleared her throat, not with a nervous cough, but with the cold, deliberate clarity of someone about to read a corporate decree. "There's something I need to tell you all," she said, her eyes fixed on me, but not seeing me. "Specifically, something I need to tell you, Andrew." I remember thinking, oh great, she wants to adopt a third dog. What she said next was surgically precise, delivered with the practiced composure of a well-rehearsed courtroom testimony. "Andrew, I never dissolved my first marriage." The blood drained from my face. I looked at the table, then at her parents. They were staring into their plates, pale and rigid. They knew. "What in God's name are you talking about, Sarah?" I asked. My voice, thankfully, was calm, methodical. The logical decision-making part of my brain had already seized control, locking the emotional panic in the basement. "I'm talking about Anthony. We never filed the final paperwork for our divorce 20 years ago, before I met you. We moved on. But legally, I'm still married to him." And just like that, the honey-glazed ham turned to ash in my mouth. My entire life, 15 years of marriage, 2 children, a jointly owned firm, and a shared $2 million mortgage was standing on a foundation of sand. The word that screamed in the silence was bigamy. You won't believe the calculated, cynical move she was planning, or what she wanted from me in the next 72 hours. To understand the sheer magnitude of this bomb, you need to understand the structure of our life. I designed buildings. Sarah sold the vision. We were a classic partnership. She was beautiful, organized, and ruthless in the most charming way. She told me Anthony was a brief, regrettable marriage from her early 20s, an artistic phase. She showed me what I assumed were the final papers, a separation agreement, apparently. I never questioned it. Why would I? Trust is the load-bearing wall of any relationship. For 15 years, we operated as a single financial unit. Our assets were intertwined. The house, multiple investment properties, our retirement accounts, and critically, my architectural firm, which she held a minority share in. She was the detail-oriented one. She handled the bills, the taxes, the legal documentation. I trusted her implicitly. Turns out, I was trusting a ghost. My strategic, logical brain, the one that designs load-bearing walls, was working overtime. Bigamy. The legal ramifications in our state were devastating. If our marriage was void because of her prior, undisclosed one, then I had no legal rights to the assets we built together. Our firm, our house, my retirement. I had married a woman who was already married. I looked at her, not with sadness, but with intense, cold curiosity. Why now? Why this public, shattering announcement? "Did you just ruin Christmas to tell me this, Sarah?" I asked, keeping my voice level. The children, sensing the shift in atmosphere, had mercifully retreated upstairs. Her parents looked like they were auditioning for a wax museum. "It wasn't random, Andrew. It had to be now," she whispered, leaning forward. "Anthony died 2 weeks ago." My breath hitched. Okay, this wasn't a confession of guilt. This was the opening move in a highly calculated, cynical maneuver, a plot that had been simmering for 2 decades. She continued, the words delivered with the measured cadence of a financial report. "He died intestate, no will. He was a successful entrepreneur in commercial real estate in Texas. He was doing very well. And because we were still legally married in the eyes of the state where he filed the original separation, I am his primary legal heir." My dry, sarcastic side couldn't help but surface. "So, you didn't just ruin Christmas, Sarah. You've been carrying a legal skeleton in your closet for 2 decades, just waiting for the poor guy to kick the bucket so you could cash in. That's impressive in its coldness. Truly next-level financial planning." She didn't flinch. "It's about protecting our future, Andrew. His estate is worth at least $5 million, and legally, it's mine. Ours." The word ours felt like a violent insult. She was trying to frame this epic deception as a financial windfall for us, when in reality she was exposing us both to enormous legal jeopardy. If his family found out she'd been married to me for 15 years while still legally tied to him, that $5 million would be gone in legal fees and challenges. She needed me to help her secure the inheritance quickly and quietly. "You're talking about fraud, Sarah," I stated. "Bigamy, fraud, and a lawsuit waiting to happen. You think I'm going to commit a crime to help you liquidate a dead man's estate?" She pulled out a second document from her purse, a printout of a bank statement and a letterhead from a Texas law firm. "I've already hired a lawyer in Texas. He's discreet. We just need a notarized statement from you saying you were aware of our unusual open separation, but that we considered ourselves common law, not officially married, for the sake of his estate." That was it. The pitch. She wanted me to lie, under oath, to secure her a massive inheritance, thus cementing her financial position as she blew up our own marriage. If our marriage was void, she could try to claim it was never legal, thus protecting her from sharing the inheritance, while simultaneously arguing for a disproportionate share of our joint assets. I stood up, pushing my chair back slowly. The sound echoed in the suddenly silent room. "You know what, Sarah? I designed a life for us. I didn't just build a house. I built a safe harbor. You just torpedoed the whole damn thing. And you think I'm going to man the lifeboats for your $5 million scam? Merry Christmas." I walked out. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the door. I just left the room, the house, and 15 years of lies behind me. 72 hours later, I had hired my own lawyer, and the battle for my entire professional and financial future was on. The first call I made wasn't to a divorce lawyer. It was to my business partner, Mark, not Sarah's brother, a different Mark. I needed to protect the firm's assets immediately. Within 4 hours, every operating account required 2 signatures. My lawyer, Helen Thorne, came highly recommended, a quiet, middle-aged woman known for being a shark who always kept her smile on. She listened to the story of the Christmas dinner bombshell without blinking. "The term you're looking for, Andrew, is avoidable marriage, not automatically void. But the real danger is the criminal side, bigamy, and intent to defraud the Texas estate," Helen said calmly. "Her goal is to leverage the invalidity of your marriage to claim Anthony's estate while simultaneously claiming half of your firm and assets, arguing that since your marriage wasn't legal, the prenup is moot. But she's entitled to a huge share under palimony or unjust enrichment laws." Her first instruction was simple, immediate, and effective. Do nothing, say nothing, sign nothing. Then, the first masterful stroke. Helen didn't file for divorce. She filed an emergency financial protection order on the major joint assets, the house, our personal investment accounts, the firm's non-operating funds, citing irreparable financial harm due to undisclosed prior legal entanglements and potential bigamy investigation. The next day, Sarah's carefully constructed composure crumbled. I received a series of frantic, manipulative text messages. My card was declined at Nordstrom. "What the hell did you do, Andrew? Don't be selfish. This is for the kids' college fund. We can be a multi-million-dollar family by New Year's if you just cooperate. You are going to destroy our family over your ego. Just sign the affidavit for Anthony's lawyer." I meticulously forwarded every text to Helen. They were proof of her financial motive and manipulative intent. I realized then that I wasn't divorcing a wife. I was facing a corporate adversary who had slept in my bed for 15 years. I maintained the public facade for the children, the terrifying comedy of having to open presents and host Boxing Day brunch while simultaneously getting text updates from Helen. The official line: "Mom and Dad are having a serious business disagreement that requires lawyers." Sarah's brother, Mark, quietly pulled me aside on Boxing Day. "Andrew, I can't support her on this. She always told us Anthony was long gone, but I saw her check the Texas news feeds regularly. I think she was waiting for this." The multi-party perspective confirmed my horrifying suspicion. This wasn't an oversight. This was a long-term, calculated financial play. The sense of betrayal deepened. It wasn't just a lie. It was a decades-long financial conspiracy. The major revelation came 3 weeks later at the first mediation session. The setting was a sterile, windowless room. The air was thick with professional disdain. Sarah and her lawyer, a slick, expensive-looking man named Mr. Vance, sat across from Helen and me. Mr. Vance went straight for the jugular, just as Helen predicted. He argued that since I technically married a legally married woman, our marriage was void ab initio from the start. Therefore, the prenuptial agreement was worthless. and Sarah was entitled to a massive portion of the assets we acquired, including most of the firm's value, based on her labor and contribution over 15 years. Sarah sat there, stone-faced, nodding along. She looked confident. She thought she had me trapped. Then, Helen delivered the masterpiece. She didn't contest the void marriage claim. "Mr. Vance, we stipulate that the marriage is void, given your client's failure to dissolve her prior union," Helen began, her voice calm and pleasant. "However, my client will be filing a criminal referral with the district attorney's office tomorrow morning, citing bigamy and attempted fraud against Mr. Anthony's Texas estate, using the text messages proving your client's clear financial motive." The color drained from Mr. Vance's face. Sarah's composure finally broke. Helen continued, relentless and calm. "Your client has 2 marriages, 2 sets of assets, and 2 legal jurisdictions hanging over her head. If she pursues the $5 million Texas inheritance, the legal scrutiny will certainly expose the bigamy, leading to criminal charges and the loss of both estates. The $5 million, and potentially her half of our community property, will be frozen in litigation for a decade, facing claims from the deceased's family and the state." Helen laid out the strategic final offer. "I would file for a declaration of invalidity of marriage, the legal term that protects me from liability." Sarah walks away with a highly diminished, but substantial, settlement, enough to live comfortably, but nowhere near the windfall she planned. In return, she must irrevocably forfeit all claim to the Texas estate and sign an affidavit stating she will not challenge the distribution of Anthony's assets. It was a brilliant maneuver. She had forced Sarah to choose between greedy, high-risk litigation with criminal exposure or a quick, comfortable, but significantly smaller exit. The greedy, cynical part of her couldn't risk the zero-sum game. Sarah looked at me, her eyes burning with pure hatred. "You knew I wouldn't go to jail," she spat. I didn't reply. I just looked at Helen. She was already shaking hands with Mr. Vance. It was over. The next few months were spent in the quiet, methodical process of splitting the assets, managed entirely by the lawyers. I signed the papers that didn't just end a marriage, but declared it had never legally existed. It was the strangest feeling of finality. I protected the firm, securing full ownership by buying out her minority share at a calculated discount. I protected my retirement. Most importantly, I protected the kids. They adjusted quickly, focusing on their activities, relieved the tension was gone. The emotional closure was slow, but it came. The shock was replaced by a cold realization. Trust is not just a feeling, it's a verifiable legal state. I was an architect who designed a solid life, but I missed the single, structural flaw: the fraudulent foundation. I learned that day that being calm and methodical isn't just a coping mechanism. It's the best defense against chaos. When your world is falling apart, you don't panic, you follow the schematics. I look at every contract, every commitment, every relationship now with a new, colder eye. The house is quiet. The pine scent has finally faded. I saved my life, not with passion, but with calm, strategic logic. But the story doesn't quite end there. I recently got a forwarded email from Helen, a message from Anthony's estranged sister in Texas. She's challenging the estate settlement, claiming Sarah wasn't legally entitled to anything because of the bigamy. She's asking for my testimony. It seems the structural flaw Sarah tried to bury is still causing tremors. And I'm about to get involved in a dead man's business all over again.